Welcome back to the Mental Health Matchmaker podcast. I'm your host, Brooke, and on today's episode, we are joined by Maria, a registered therapist who helps clients in the areas of anxiety, depression, life transitions, and relationship issues. In this episode, we explore emotion regulation, values, and self-esteem. And Maria also touches on her journey of becoming the therapist she wished she'd had when she was younger, and how she helps clients build a kinder, more accepting inner dialogue. Let's get into it. When we first chatted, we talked about your own journey as a teen. I think you went to seek support and it was kind of an invalidating experience.
When I was around, 12 years old, I was navigating a very difficult and confusing time in my life. So I reached out to my mom and I'm like, Mom, you know what? I feel like I'm not doing well. She's amazing. She supported me. She's like, okay, let's look for some professional support. It was surprising to me because I was very open to it. But then when I had the opportunity to speak with those professionals, it wasn't, of course, what I was expecting. So the first thing I noticed is this psychologist was asking me so many questions, which I get it, now and on the professional side, I get it. But there was not that connection with me in a sense of, tell me more what you're struggling with. It felt more like a questionnaire. And then at the end of the session, she's like, I actually have to refer you to another professional. And then for me, I always remember those words. They stayed with me for all these years when he said, if you're feeling so sad, then maybe we need to keep you here at the mental health unit, right? And then I was like, wait a minute, I'm opening up about how I'm feeling, but as a child, I felt like my mom believed me, but the professional people, they maybe thought I was doing it for attention. His response was passive aggressive, maybe you need to stay here so you can feel better. And I was like, if this is what people are experiencing when they reach out for support, then this is bad. Maybe I can do something to change that experience. And that's what inspired me to be the therapist I wish I could have had when I was needing that support so much.
Yes, I love the idea of becoming the therapist you wish you'd had, to open up about a really difficult thing that you're experiencing and then to be told that you're doing it for attention. That would just be such an icky feeling.
Thankfully, I had the support from my mom. But I see a lot of people don't have that privilege, right? They're navigating that and they're alone. So what I can see is just they're gonna shut down. They're never gonna get the support they need and they deserve. Because if this is the experience they're getting, well, I wouldn't do it as well, right? It's for me an inspiration to always be aware of the therapeutic relationship. Internally, I'm like, you know what? I've been there. I have so much empathy for them. I know what it is like to have no resources and feel lost. But I also know that things change when you have the resources, when you have more information, when you have the opportunity to see things from a different perspective.
Yeah, your warmth really does shine through. It is an immediate thing you can sense, and it's really lovely. And I feel like that would be such a feeling of safety, knowing you can let your guard down.
Yeah, and that takes time. I always validate that on the client side because I also go to therapy. I know you don't connect with everyone at the same level. It's normal at the beginning to feel awkward, to feel anxious, to feel uncomfortable. But the idea is that throughout our sessions, the client will slowly feel more comfortable with me, with my style. But also sometimes if the person doesn't feel like it's connecting with me, I always validate that.
You're making it fully about the client, and your concern is about their journey and their journey alone. So I love that you're even if this isn't working for you, let's find something else for you. Or, it might take time and connection might not happen in an instant, but let's see where it goes. That would be such an encouraging and gentle nudge into a therapy journey if you're new to it. That doesn't feel forceful. Going back to your experience that you had growing up, that would have impacted your self-esteem as a teen. Can you talk about what it looks like when a client comes to you struggling in the area of self-esteem?
There are, of course, a lot of areas that we work on, but one of the things I try to bring in, of course, if the client is interested in, is self-compassion. Because when we look at self-esteem, a lot of the time we struggle with that inner critic, and it makes sense. Like, probably in life we've had experiences that led us to create, like a narrative about ourselves. Maybe we're not good enough, like I could always do things better. I'm not as pretty as other people, so we compare with others, right? But when we bring in self-compassion, we see that a lot of the things that we struggle with first, many people struggle with them, right? So we start to notice that, okay, it's not a me thing. There is nothing wrong with me. Sometimes it's just human nature to feel the way we do, right? That's one big piece. Because when we feel that we're lonely in the struggle, we isolate, right? Like we believe no one else will get it. If we could talk about those things with more people, we will see like we connect with the same struggle. Of course, everybody has a different story, but we have a lot of points in common. The other thing is like we bring a lot of self-kindness. So again, going back to the inner critic, we can be super hard on ourselves when we're navigating any struggles, of course.
Anything, any task, day to day, anything.
And it's so easy for us to fall in that trap of beating ourselves up or blaming ourselves for things that mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. So when we bring self-kindness, we'll see like, okay, I can actually approach the same situation, but maybe with a little bit more understanding. So that helps, for example, client with a situation and then they made a mistake. It will go from telling themselves like, I'm so stupid, like I always do things wrong, to moving to a different self-talk. It's okay, I'm human, I make mistakes, I can learn from them. Maybe next time I will do it differently. Or telling themselves, you know what, like this feels uncomfortable. That's the mindfulness piece. Like this feels uncomfortable. I don't like how I'm feeling right now, but I deserve empathy. I deserve to have the space to maybe express these emotions.
Yes, I love therapy for that reason. I can be really brutal to myself. I think a lot of us can relate to that. My inner critic is really mean, really, really mean.
Yeah.
So sometimes in my sessions, my therapist will mirror back to me and repeat what I had just said. And she'll be like, that's really harsh, don't you think? And when I hear it back, it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I often don't realize how harsh that inner critic is. And it's this perfect reminder of, like you said, would you speak to someone else like that? No, because you're aware of how unkind it is. But for some reason, that lens gets kind of skewed.
And like, I feel like that's where a lot of things begin, by increasing that self-awareness, right? By noticing like, oh, look what I'm saying to myself right now. And that's kind of like the beginning for many clients, where they maybe before they didn't even realize they were talking to themselves in that way. That was just like normal, because it happens to most of us. Again, as I say before, that common humanity, like we share that as humans. Like the only relationship that you will have till the end of your life, it's the relationship with yourself. You can have a lot of people come and go, and those relationships are very important, but you are the only person that is going to be with you for the rest of your life. So we got to make sure it's a friendly space to be in. So if we have a very dark or negative space in our mind, that's how our reality is going to feel like, right? But when we shift a little bit the perspective, or when we start paying sometimes attention to other things, maybe I'm going to start paying more attention to the things I do well rather than all the mistakes I make. Because of course, as humans, we're going to make mistakes. But of course, as humans as well, we're going to do things well.
Yeah.
So it's also sometimes about changing that perspective and moving that lens towards other things or other areas that maybe before clients were not able to see.
In my past, I have thought that the self-criticism and the really intense, harsh inner critic is serving me because it's pushing me to be better and to grow and expand and improve. But I've realized now how unsustainable living like that is when I'm fueled by that voice versus the more compassionate voice that remembers that I'm human, that allows me to make mistakes. And then when I shift into compassion, I can recover quicker and bounce back and not feel discouraged and shut down. Like motivation can come and the push to be better can come from a more compassionate lens. It's not weak. It's not being too soft with ourselves. It actually helps us improve in a way that is more sustainable for the long term.
Exactly. We can have that self-compassion in a balanced way, right? It's not all about making excuses for ourselves.
Yes.
That's completely different. It's not about like saying like, oh, it's great you made a mistake. Well, no, that's lying to yourself. It's not great you made a mistake.
Yes, we can still be honest.
You can say, oh, I made a mistake and it feels wrong or it feels frustrating, right? But I also recognize that maybe anyone in my shoes will feel the same way. And I also recognize that the next time, maybe I can do it better. But that's different from saying really mean things to ourselves just to motivate us, because that becomes kind of like the voice in your head, right? Like maybe you're saying, sometimes we can say it as a motivation, but sometimes it stays with us for many, many years. So again, would you have a friend that is constantly telling you you're stupid, you're ridiculous, or I don't know, you're not smart? Anyone having a friend like that will be like, no, I don't need you in my life.
Yeah,
and we'll end that relationship.
Because that's bullying.
Exactly.
We have a, basic understanding that is bullying.
And I always say this with a lot of understanding, because we don't do that on purpose. That was the way we learn to deal with those situations.
Yes.
So for the same reason, and I always tell clients, for the same reason, we're going to try to teach our brain a different path, a different way to cope with things. And at the beginning, it feels uncomfortable. Your brain is going to tell you this doesn't work. Yes, because it's new territory, right? But it's like when you learn to ride a bike. The first few times you're trying, like you fall, you cry, you feel like you're never going to learn. But then what happens with practice? Eventually we learn to do it, and then we get to a point in life when we are never thinking like, oh, how do I ride a bike? Like you just go on it and you know what to do. Same thing happens with all of these skills that we work on in therapy, right? At the beginning it's uncomfortable, but with practice, clients can see that, hey, now I have a different path.
Yes, and that feels empowering. It feels so much more empowering. You mentioned the word skill, and I think that's really important. Like these things take practice. If they're new to us and we've been doing the opposite for so long, it is a practice. And another skill that you talk about in your sessions and you support people with is emotion regulation.
Yeah.
What is that all about?
Yeah, so I love emotion regulation because I feel like we all, of course, like have emotions. We all sometimes have struggle with emotions. So it's just about befriending our emotions. Many of us have grown up in contexts where our emotions were communicated as bad. We learned that our emotions were kind of like an enemy, or it was something to be afraid of, or don't feel your emotions. Like, that's not good. If you're sad, don't feel sad. If you're angry, don't feel angry. But what we work on in therapy is on understanding that first thing, emotions are so important and are an amazing source of information. So when we actually take the time to listen to them, you have more power because now you have access to more information than maybe before when you were shutting those emotions down. So when we learn to hear what they want to tell us, or the message that the emotion is trying to communicate, we're better prepared or equipped to respond to these situations, right? So I always tell clients it's not the emotion that is bad, it's sometimes our reactions or our behaviors that are bad, right? So for example, someone struggling with anger sometimes can, I don't know, hit walls or scream or express that emotion in a negative way or in a way that impacts negatively their relationships.
Yeah.
So what we start working on is, okay, how can we feel that emotion but do something or respond in a way, again, that feels more true to yourself, that feels more like the person that you want to be.
I love this. This is music to my ears. Keep going. I just got really excited because you said that's true to you, true to who you want to be. You didn't say the right way. You said that's true for you and who you want to be. It still embraces the fact that we are individuals and we will express ourselves differently. And I love that you still allow space for that when you frame it in that way.
Yeah, exactly. It's not about, like, let's say someone is really frustrated and maybe they need that physical response to be like, you're going to be super calm and happy. It's not about that. It's maybe, okay, let's work on ways to regulate if we know your body is a source of like releasing that emotion. Maybe let's work on more like a healthier way to release that emotion and then work on, okay, what do you want to do next? So for example, something we do sometimes is progressive muscle relaxation, or like sometimes, let's say someone who struggles with anger, like pushing a wall. So you are not harming anybody, you're not breaking a wall, you're not hitting anyone, you're not screaming at them, but sometimes you need that physical response, right? So push the wall with all your strength and the motion will decrease. It's kind of like a wave that I always use this example as well in sessions. Like emotions are like waves. So at the beginning, you kind of like sometimes don't feel that they're coming and they're like, they have a peak, so they feel super strong. But eventually, for all the emotions, there is going to be a moment when the intensity is going to start decreasing. So again, it's momentary. All the emotions have kind of like a arousal, and then eventually once they reach the peak they will go down. So we have to maybe start learning on ways to navigate that peak so that when we get to the peak we're not having maybe behaviors that feel wrong or that go against, again, the person we want to be, but more work on having behaviors that are more aligned with the type of person we want to be.
Yes. So we're still saying that we are meant to experience the entire range of emotions, and that is just part of the human experience. And through learning these tools in emotion regulation, we just find ways to express these emotions without causing harm to people around us, without making ourselves feel like we're going against who we want to be.
And it feels more empowering, right? Like when we feel like, hey, I have all the right to feel my emotions. Let's take a moment to hear them, kind of like sit with that emotion, start to practice. How do they feel in my body, right? Like, what do I feel when I'm angry? What do I feel when I'm sad? Those are things that most of us never experience throughout our life. And sometimes when I work on this in sessions with clients, they're like, I have no idea what's going on in my body. Okay, let's just start working on that. There is no shame. It's okay. But let's just start working on recognizing, okay, how does the anger show up in your body, or the sadness, or the frustration, or the anxiety? Let's start to read the warning signs. The next time we're better prepared on what to do when this emotion comes up. And now is not the emotion controlling ourselves, but us deciding and choosing how we want to express that emotion. Still, it's present, but we're more empowered and, in a sense, more in control of what we do with that emotion.
I love this so much. I'm picturing like superheroes all over the place right now. that are working with their emotions.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like it's such a beautiful journey because we start to connect more with ourselves again, being more compassionate. We start to be more wise about the way we manage our emotions, and we feel more empowered. I also try to connect it with the person's values, so in a way that aligns with my values. For me, being brave is a value. Okay, part of bravery, for example, is doing things even if you're scared. So next time when I'm scared about doing something and or I'm very, very anxious, I'm gonna show myself that I can do it, even if I feel a little bit anxious or a lot anxious, right?
Yes.
Because I'm acting more based on my values and the person who I want to be rather than acting from the fear or the anxiety. That again, it's important to listen to it. Oh, things are gonna go wrong. Like people are gonna make fun of you. Okay, welcome all of those thoughts. Those are part of the mindfulness and being present with that emotion. But I'm gonna choose, even if I have those thoughts, I'm gonna choose to go and do what I wanted to do in the first place.
Yes. And you can kind of use your therapy session, at least this is what I do often. They feel really real because they're real thoughts that we're having, but we can look at them a little more objectively and maybe filter out the ones that aren't accurate. Because sometimes we can get really good at exaggerating things, especially when fear comes into the picture as humans.
Exactly. Building more balanced thoughts. It's not about being super extra positive about things because life, unfortunately, it's not all positive and all good things. So it's about building a more balanced perspective. Or maybe things can go in a way that you don't expect them to go. But how about if you have the way or the resources to cope with it?
Yes, we're equipping ourselves with these tools and this armor. This superhero is coming back to my mind again.
Exactly.
So cool. I love the idea of getting to know yourself and befriending yourself in that way. And that sounds like setting yourself up for a much more pleasant experience as a human if we're able to enjoy our own company and feel like we're rooting for ourselves. Okay, we could keep talking forever, but we're going to wrap it up. You are located in Mississauga, Vaughan, and virtually over the phone.
Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for everything you've shared.